headquarters in Rockville, Maryland. Welcome to MoSoClub training webinar here on January 28th, 2016. My name is Todd Tweedy. I'll be your moderator for today's session. Your presenter today is Matt Willis, MoSoClub developer. We'll be going over a number of topics this afternoon, beginning with an update on recent fixes as well as critical issues currently being addressed, desktop application release information and demonstration video, scheduler application update and demonstration, connection end-of-life update, and finally your questions. I'll turn it over to your presenter, Matthew Willis, who will begin our demonstration today. Matthew? Hey, Matthew, are you able to hear me? We're having trouble hearing you.
Is this better?
That's perfect. All right, take it away.
Okay, so apologies for that. Anyways, if this is your first time, welcome. I hope we can give you some good information about what's coming in the next month. February has some big landmarks for MoSoClub and Connection. February 15th will be the Connection end of life, as you should have heard. We're going to be sending out emails starting tomorrow and then over the next couple of weeks just to remind you and give you updates on that looming deadline. Also in February, we're going to be releasing the desktop application, which will facilitate the background check-in and interaction with the receipt printer and cash drawer. And we're also going to be releasing the scheduler module, which is an entirely new module that we've been working hard on for about 2 months now. It's about to finish our testing, so it's completely done development, and it's about to finish the internal QA process where we work out any bugs, and then we're going to release that to everyone. That should come early next month, along with the desktop app. So I'll show you some of those today. So let's get started. What we're going to, the whole process, we're going to go through some recent fixes and critical issues that are being worked on. This is sort of the short-term view. So the recent fixes front, we're sort of battling any bugs that come up on 3 different fronts. So we've been getting them in sort of 3 categories. The first is anything involving point-of-sale reports. Switching over from Connection to MoSoClub, we've had a lot of discrepancies between the 2 applications. So part of the big task in our development and QA departments has been connecting to your databases actually individually. We'll take a backup of them and restore them to a development or test environment and connect to it in Connection and connect to it in MoSoClub. And then we'll run reports, the same reports that you're running side by side, and make sure that they're matching. So that's the first third of our bug fixing has to do with POS reports. So in last night's release, we had what was the accumulation of about 60 hours worth of development in point of sale to ensure that there would be no errors happening where you would get partial data, a transaction without the detail. We also entered some more code to make sure that there would be no instances where you would find a member's card charged and you wouldn't record that in the database. We saw that very, very sparingly, but the fact that it happened even once is unacceptable in my opinion. So I made sure we spent a great deal of development time over the past 2 weeks in the sprint shoring up that portion of the application so there could be no errors there. And if there are, on the rare exception of something that we couldn't see, they're going to be logged in our application and emailed to myself, Dharmesh, the VP of Operations, so no errors will go overlooked and they'll be cleaned up instantly. On that note, if you do experience any errors, take a screenshot, call support, email us, let us know right away so we can get them fixed. The second front, the first was POS reports. The second is billing. We've had very few tickets come in actually over the past few weeks dealing with um, issues generating your billing batch files for monthly or bi-monthly or what have you billing. So I'm comfortable saying that part of the application is just about ready for the connection end of life. We have been adding some enhancements to it. For example, in the big release that went out last night, we added a confirmation message if you use MoSoPay to process your batch billing. So previously, you wouldn't get a message that said your file has been successfully delivered to MoSoPay and it will be processed. We added something in the latest release that makes sure that your file with all of your banking information is securely delivered to MoSoPay so they can process it. And then once it gets that confirmation from MoSoPay, it will show you that alert in real time. So things like that we're beefing up in the billing process. Along those same lines, we're improving the insufficient funds or NSF portion of the billing handling. We're adding the ability to process NSF files for all third-party banks. Banks return files in the format called NACHA, N-A-C-H-A format. It's a very standard format. So and then the release coming up, we actually just finished development and it'll go through testing now. But the release coming up probably next week, we'll have that ability added where you can process any billing for any third-party banks for insufficient funds as well as drafts. And the third part of what we're doing as far as development and bug fixing is any of the actual usability bugs that you're reporting. So it's kind of a broad category, but those tend to be the faster things to fix because it's usually one line of code that was as a typo or something like that where you get the error. So you're saving a member and you get an error, or you're trying to sign up a member and the start date is incorrect. I know that was one of the bugs that we fixed. That fall into this category. Those are typically a little bit easier for us to fix. Sometimes they are actually even data issues resulting from a bad conversion when you first came over to Connection. And one of the challenging parts of this conversion, if you're coming over from Connection Desktop, is there were a lot of older versions of the application that treated data differently. So we're really having to shore everything up, which is good for the long run. It's going to offer more stability in the long run. So those are the three fronts that we're handling on a daily basis with our tier 2 and 3 support and our development team as far as what's out there. Obviously, the billing and point of sale have the highest priority. Point of sale, I mean any reports that have to deal with what your revenue is on specific items that are being sold, as well as the shift report. I know there were some discrepancies there. We've dedicated a lot of time to getting those fixed. So those are obviously our biggest priorities. Shifting gears, we are also spending time looking towards the horizon and working on the two biggest new modules that are coming out, the desktop application and the scheduler application. Scheduler application is actually just the scheduler module added to MoSoClub. We added some things that were glaringly missing from Connection Scheduler. Connection Scheduler was written about 15 years ago, so some of the ideas that are happening in the gym industry weren't even thought of back then. So we're really trying to modernize that module before we deliver it out to you guys. So we'll start with the desktop application. I'll actually show you a little bit of that functionality. So the desktop application is going to be another little application that you install on your computer, and it's going to run in the background. It runs when you start Windows, so you don't really have to think about it once it's installed. If for any reason you don't want that to happen, it does have sorry, it's not on this computer. It does have an exe file that you can run at any time. So I don't envision anyone having to do that, but there could be some security reasons where your network engineer might decide that you can't have this running at all times. I'll leave that up to you guys, but when you do want to run it, it will put a small icon down here in your taskbar. And let's look at some settings here because that will sort of highlight some of the functionality that we have here. So the two big pieces of hardware that we couldn't integrate with using a web browser were the printer and the cache drawer. You've probably felt that heartache from listening to your front desk staff or your personal trainers when they're printing package receipts, and that they have to click multiple times now to print a receipt. And I understand, I've worked front desk jobs where I would have told my manager this is unacceptable, and I agree it's unacceptable that you have to stand there and click multiple times just to print a receipt. So what we developed is the ability to print directly to whatever receipt printer you have installed on Windows. So I installed this RTSP 100. It's the most common receipt printer we have out there. When we show you guys the video, we'll send it out right after this, you'll see that printer actually printing. The other piece is the cache drawer. It will have all of these pop codes by default, so you won't have to worry about configuring it. These are all of the standard pop codes. So if your printer is working, the cache drawer will work. I can guarantee you 99.9%. So those are the two things we couldn't integrate with. And part of the reason we couldn't integrate with them is part of the reason that we have to do this whole conversion to begin with. With PCI compliance, we can't have the same form of communication between your computer and ours as Connection has. So when you open up the Connection portal, it actually opens up what is now considered a very insecure connection between your computer and our server. Obviously, when you're transmitting massive amounts of member information, including social security numbers at that point and billing information, that's not something that PCI compliance is going to allow. So part of that security, added security, and with the web browser is that we can control how we interact with these pieces of hardware and increase that security as well. Okay, so let me go ahead and log into my test environment here. And I'll give you a quick demo of what the MoSoClub desktop app will do. Okay, so you may have noticed when I had this open first that this was flashing red repeatedly on the bottom initially. It will do that when it detects that this application detects that you don't have the browser open. So that sort of emphasizes the fact that you must have the browser open and connected to the application, actually logged in for this desktop application to work. This is not a substitute for the connection keycard application, which some of you may use. That's something that can work offline to, if you're doing a 24-hour access facility, for example, or if you have an unmanned check-in desk with a gate access controller, or even if there's no gate access controller. That is an offline solution. This is still an online solution, and it still requires you to be authenticated into your web browser. The big reason for that is because this allows you to communicate with your cache drawer and your printer. It would be insecure for us to communicate that way without you having this valid authentication session in MoSoClub in the browser. So once you're logged in, the background check-in application is actually up and working. It's listening for any barcode scans. So I'm going to scan something, and you'll see this result up here. Check-in attempt for member test Matthew resulted in a valid entry. And you also see that appear here. Let me expand this view. So this member doesn't have an image. I believe I have one in here that has an image. I just scanned another one. Okay, so this is another member, John Henry, whatever name. I had an image for him. He shows up. It's another valid entry. So you can adjust the size of this panel, whether you want to see the member images or not. You can expand and shrink, and you'll just see the most recent check-ins. There's also the option to filter out and see only good check-ins, only bad check-ins. I don't have any bad check-ins yet. I think I have one. Oh, that's another good check-in. So those are all the key cards I have available to scan. But you can see it'll give you the status. It'll tell you up top here whether they checked in or not. You don't necessarily have to have this open either if you don't want to have this lingering. This will tell you who's checked in. It persists whether you're in membership management or you navigate away to agreement writer. So you can still see who's checked in recently. Obviously, you won't need to use this if you're in check-in because that has the same functionality that exists now. No changes there. But for example, if you're in point of sale, this application will allow you to still record check-ins and see the status of that member, whether they're allowed to get in or not. It will also, I have this muted so you can't hear any computer sounds, but it will play the check-in sounds that you have already programmed in at check-in. So if you have the loud stop sound and someone gets an invalid entry, you'll see that they get an invalid entry up top here. You'll hear the sound and you'll see that they show up with a red mark here. Similarly for the valid entry, whether it's the chime or whatever you have programmed in check-in.
Hey, Matthew, let me give our attendees a chance to ask questions. If you have a question
Sure.
for Matthew, please use the question module inside of the control panel itself. I do have one question for you, Matt. This is from Andrew, who has a question about connection. With connection, there was a billing deadline schedule. Am I correct with MoSoPay there are no deadlines? Just need to submit batch drafts the day before, correct?
That is correct. With MoSoPay, the batches, whatever batches you submit during billing are processed real time. That means that they're collected by MoSoPay. They're not necessarily sent off to be processed collected from the bank as soon as you submit them. That all depends on what the effective date is you have for. Oops, let me get past that. What the effective date is you have for the billing here. So if I'm doing this, and this isn't set up to go, this is set up to go to MoSoPay EFT. If I set this effective date for 2/1 and run billing today, then MoSoPay will go and collect this file today, but it won't actually process the file until 2/1. So you won't see all your returns until a couple of days after that. And that's completely up to you what day you want to process it. I encourage you to do it at least the day before, just in case you encounter some data issues and some weird issue where someone looks like they're not supposed to be billed, and you want to give us a call and have us take a look at it at least one day before. But you can do that as early as you'd like.
Awesome. Matt, I have another question. This one is from Nanette. Can you quickly review again how you were able to get that check-in sidebar activated?
Sure. And I'm in a little bit of a development environment right now, so I'll try my best to show you what it will look like for you. So when you start your computer, actually, I'll show you what it looks like when you start your computer. I'm going to have to just restart this real quick. So actually, when you start your computer, it will come up with this already up. Let me get rid of this guy. So this will actually already be up. This thing that shows the recent check-ins. So if I go and do a check-in right now, I might have to reconnect. I'm not sure. Yeah, so if you close this, then you have to reconnect with the browser because there's a very persistent connection between the two. So when you first start your computer, if this is installed, it will open up like this, and you open up the browser, it will be ready for a check-in, to show you who checked in. That's a big picture. To show you what the result was, all that data. If you close it or if anything happens, you can always double-click on this, and I think I have it disabled in my development environment because we're changing the appearance. But if you click this, which is the check-in functionality, it will reopen that the little check-in window. The version we have actually out in our QA servers will do that right now, but I was doing development for this all night last night, so it's a little bit finicky right now for that one functionality. That's how you reopen that.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. Yeah, I have a question from Debbie concerning POS and MM. Are we supposed to be able to have POS and MM opened at the same time, but we were unable to do that on our POS computer? Why? Is that just us?
I believe it is. I would have to see that, to be honest with you, Debbie, to tell you exactly what's happening. But if you right-click on point of sale, we programmed in this custom menu. Normally when you right-click, you get the regular browser. This is called a context menu in the programming world. So we programmed a custom context menu that allows you to open point of sale in the same tab, which is the same as just clicking the link with your left mouse button, in a new tab or in a new window entirely. And you can have them both open at the same time. So you can do whatever searches and updates you would here, and then change over and do a point of sale transaction. That's all possible in what we programmed here. So if it's not working on that one computer, I would say it's something up with that workstation, and I would encourage you to call support or send us an email. We can get on the computer.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. And Jackie has a question. How do you make purchases within POS?
So, Jackie, we can send you some documentation on this to get the items configured and get all of your payment methods set up correctly. But it's really as simple as selecting the item, or selecting the quantity, and I'll add it to your cart down here, and then selecting your payment method. For example, I'll pick exact cash here. This item requires a member, so it's going to ask me for one. Give it to my friend Corey. And that's as simple as that. That records this transaction as a cash for $4.21.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. Any other questions?
If you have any,
or you check in?
Yeah, I would encourage you to reach out to support too for that issue if you have one.
All right, Matt.
Okay.
No other questions right now, so let's keep rolling.
Okay, thanks, Todd. I'm going to skip over to Scheduler and show you some of the things that we've done there. Oops, I typed the URL wrong. I also want to mention one other thing about this desktop applications. We will be sending out an email with a lot of documentation on how to install this, where the installation media will be, and how to use it. That will be all sent out in an email. We'll also include that link in the software, so you can click that and get the documentation on that at any point. So I'll explain how to do that too in a future webinar. Okay. Okay, so a note about Scheduler. When we started this conversion process, we went and looked at all of the different modules that were available in Connection and looked at how often everyone was using them. When you open each of them, there's a record created that says you open them, so we can see how often and who is using each module. Scheduler was the least used module out of the entire software suite, which was a little baffling to me because I also support our MoSo product, and the scheduler module there is one of the most popular modules and features. So I think that in this industry, it obviously has a lot to offer, the ability to schedule classes or even create schedules for your employees and have them be able to check and see these digitally in the system. All of those things you can do within this module that we've created. So I asked around for some of the people that were using Scheduler and also looked at what our other application had to offer that was lacking in Connections Scheduler, and we decided to rebuild Connection Scheduler with those things in mind. So we tried to keep the look and feel the same because I don't think that was the big shortfall of the application. Mostly we tried to just get rid of some of the convolution in connection scheduler. It was really difficult to set up different groups and set up items and then organize the groups correctly after you even get them set up, your resource groups. So we rebuilt that and rebuilt the way that you can navigate your way around the module. And I think now it actually offers a huge improvement to the entire software suite of MoSoClub. So we're also preparing a lot of documentation for this. We'll include that when we release this module. Again, this is in the final stages of testing now. We're, I would say, about 90% done with testing. And then it's just a matter of releasing this to you guys. So early next month, in the next 2 weeks, would be my estimate of when we're going to release this. So some of the things you can do with Scheduler. Let's say hypothetically you have a POS package for some personal training sessions, a 10-pack of PT sessions that you sell regularly. And members come in and you have a personal trainer who, or a group of personal trainers who they schedule these things with. They have a preferred personal trainer. Obviously there should be a good way to track that in this application. So you can link if the person showed up for that appointment or not, what items may have been associated with that transaction, have an automatic package redemption, those sorts of things. So that's what we had in mind when we created Scheduler. So let's take a look at one of these services. Hey, we could also do a childcare if someone wanted to schedule that, for example. So the possibilities are really endless here. So let's say hypothetically we have an item here that we want to configure in Scheduler. This is a change that we made to the entire application, but not just to Scheduler. This is something that we changed in the entire application. The ability to link these items to Scheduler resources. I want a pretty big database, so the thing I just did is going to take a second. But basically what we built into the item configuration is the ability to check a box that wasn't there before and link an item to a service. So if someone's scheduling a service and they have a 10-pack and they want to schedule something every Monday with a specific personal trainer, you can do that and associate these two items together. Sorry, this is lagging on me a little bit. Bear with me. Okay, so let's say this is an item we want to mess with. This is the checkbox that we added. So if any of you do back office or POS configuration and you're familiar with connection, or even you're really familiar with MoSoClub, because this would look the same, you notice that this checkbox does not exist right now in the application. This is something that's going to come when we merge this and release this to you. But checking this checkbox allows you to integrate and associate this item with a resource. When I say resource, I mean something available in Scheduler, whether that be a person or a class. So if that is a person, then let's just say this is a human. We can create a new resource. I'll create it from an employee. And I actually think I have one of these created, but I'll jump to the pertinent piece here. And this should show up. I would have to research why it's not. Anyways, you'll be able to see the inventory item associated. I think this inventory item was with a different location, but you'll be able to see the inventory item associated with that particular resource you're creating. What that means is if a customer has that 10-pack PT, they come in and they want to schedule a session with one of your personal trainers. Let me just go to a different location. So this is the resource that they want to schedule them with. Actually, let's do it this way. Let's say Cyrus is going to be teaching a class every Monday for the next 10 weeks or so. We'll repeat this what day did I click? Every Friday for the next 10 occurrences, next 10 weeks. If you have that resource, that PT pack associated with him, you'll be able to run reports to show that Cyrus performed a personal training session associated with that personal training package, which means you can calculate commission on your own metrics. You can report on how many people show up to these classes. So for this one, for example, we can have up to as many members as we have available in this resource. Those are all things that we've added to Scheduler that weren't there before. Along those same lines of something we added, I mentioned you can add an existing employee. So we'll look at the resource that I just selected, which is Cyrus. So his position as personal trainer, that's not necessary. This is something you could set up however you want. The really important part is this checkbox that does not exist in the application right now, again, that you have, but will once we release this. And this will allow you to associate this employee with any resources in Scheduler. So you don't have to completely recreate them. You can run reports that already have all of their employee information, including hours worked, and still get more information about any personal training sessions they did perform that were scheduled. It adds a very flexible and very a dynamic part of the application, I think. So Todd, if there are any questions about the scheduler portion of the module, I think we can answer those.
Oh, great. So I have a question from Shelby concerning Scheduler.
Sure.
Will Scheduler be accessible online via our website so customers can schedule their own appointments, or is this an in-club tool?
Great question. And that will open up something that I'm going to talk about a little bit later too. This scheduler that you're seeing right now is available only for you in the club, or I'll say it's not a member-facing scheduler. This is going to be employee-facing. So this will be your actual physical therapist or personal trainer or someone coming and scheduling appointments, not the member going online on your website and doing that. That being said, I understand as someone who, I do a lot of rock climbing, and my rock climbing gym has the ability to schedule things online. I love that. So I can go and schedule not just a class, but even schedule, a buddy session. So I want to be able to add that functionality to MoSoClub. We have that on the horizon in the very short term. Right after we release Scheduler and the desktop app, that's where our development plan is shifting for the future development. We're going to make that available. That does come with a caveat, though. If you've ever talked to one of our business analysts or sales about a feature called My Club, that is what this online scheduling is tied to. So it's not something that's just going to be available to everyone right off the bat, because it does take a lot of extra configuration. So it is something that is another paid service that you'd have to contact sales to get set up with, because we end up having to talk to your web developers and configure a lot of that information for your custom website and give them access so they can integrate whatever requests and responses to our database that they have to program in. So stay tuned for that. I think at the end of February we'll have a lot more news about that.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. I have a question for you from Christine, who asks, are you able to use the schedule for spa services that vary from personal training, and are you able to adjust the shift days and times within a week or so?
I don't know if I fully understand that, but I think we can set up something like that. So this resource group I have set up here is for personal training, but let's say, for instance, you have another one for spa. call it spa services. We're not going to give it any parent group, so it shows up as its own node here. Let's say hypothetically we wanted this to show up underneath personal training as another node that you could add resources to, then you could do that, but we're going to add this as its own. It will refresh. Okay, it won't show up until we have something assigned to it. So, this is something that was actually asked already from one of our prospects, is if you could set something like this up. And I explained that if say you have 5 different tanning booths, which is something that they had, you could set up each of those as its own resource. Ignore these. Only one person can do this at a time. Let's see. Okay. You could also hypothetically add a tanning package to link with this as well. Again, this is the checkbox in point of sale will make this available here, but let's say pretend that this says tanning package. We'll use some imagination. So this is the 10-pack tanning package. So these are all day, Monday through Friday. You can put whatever your business hours if you'd like. That's very configurable. This is a development version where for some reason it has to have a birthday. We've already fixed that bug and it's just not out there yet. Let's change the icon to something that looks more spa-like, which I don't know if we have. So one of the good things about this being active development, if when we release this, if you don't like any of these icons or you want more, let me know. We can develop these really quickly. We actually changed them just from they were in connection scheduler, but yeah, I have no problem changing those based on requests. I love hearing about things like that, make it look more friendly. Along the same lines, if you see anything in point of sale, I don't know if you noticed recently we just changed the check mark and X in check-in for successful and unsuccessful visits. So now you see this big bright X, which is something you didn't see before. That was just based on user request, and we did that for you guys. Excuse my face in this picture. Okay, so that resource is not showing up for some reason. Investigate. Oh, I don't know why it didn't show up. Ah, there we go. Setup time. So if you have to do something, say hypothetically, like clean out tanning booths in between each session, and that takes you 10 minutes, then we'll allow that. If you allow people to schedule this 1 day in advance or unlimited days, we should allow that to be 0 or MTB unlimited. I think we already changed that too. It's still not showing for some reason. Okay, well, obviously this is still in testing and development, but that's an example of a way to set up, if we had that working correctly, for example, we would have spa booth or tanning booth 1 through 5 under this view, and you'd actually be able to see the availability for each of those booths and schedule people for them. There's a lot of flexibility within Scheduler, and I encourage you, once we release it, to go through the documentation and reach out to support, because we've gone through a lot of training with support and testing, so they'll be able to help you configure this and get it working correctly.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. Let me change gears here. I've got a couple questions from Karen and a few more that I need to jump back to. Karen asks, in connection, we had a babysitting field that was later changed to massage. In Scheduler, can we have the field read massage instead of babysitting?
I think I know what you're talking about. And that would probably be one of these custom fields. You can change the labels of those fields to change what they say. So for example, this daycare one is what it says by default, and that's if you provide that and check that box when someone checks in, it will show the teddy bear and check in and allow you to decrement the number of daycare sessions that they have or visits that they have left. Those options are all set here. Right now, those aren't even integrated into Scheduler. If you can think of a use case scenario, where you'd like them to be integrated somehow, so you can see if someone has one of these available, then shoot support an email just outlining what it is, and I may give you a call or communicate with you personally once I see it, to figure out exactly what the requirements are. So those are all things we can add to the application. If that's not the exact thing you're looking for, then you can always create different resource groups and names. So you can create a resource group with the name daycare or whatever name you want, like.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. Another question from Karen. What's the time frame for the MoSoClub desktop and the how-to documents on MoSoClub? When will those be available?
I will have to ask marketing for the ETA on the documentation for MoSoClub. I know they've been working hard on that. I think they have over 50 pages done so far, so it's going to be pretty extensive. I'm not sure on their ETA for that. I can give you the ETA on the desktop app because this is something I'm doing the development on personally. We're about 90% through testing with this as well. There are some bugs. I know there are still bugs with this because as I play with it, I still find them. So I know they're still out there. Until we go through about a week of testing without bugs, it won't be released. So hopefully that will be this next week when we don't find anything. My goal is the second week of February, that release cycle. So that would be the release that goes out on the 9th of February. That's the target right now. It's possible we can get it out earlier, but that might not happen.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. Let me shift gears here, and a question from Shelby. We've been unable to redeem gift cards in Moso. Has that glitch been fixed in the recent update?
Oh, I think I lost you there for a second, Todd.
Oh, sure, one more time. So this is a question from Shelby who asks, we've been unable to redeem gift cards in Moso. Has that glitch been fixed in the recent update?
We fixed two things that were wrong with gift cards in the most recent update. One had to do with I don't think I have gift cards active. Oh, I do. One had to do with the available balance that showed up on a gift card if you tried to use that as a tender option. The available balance was wrong. There's remaining balance here. We fixed that one in this most recent glitch. That was preventing sales. The other bug that was out there was if you refunded a transaction to a gift card, it decremented the value of the gift card instead of adding balance back to that. So those are the two things that we have. Off the top of my head, I don't know of any tickets that are out there that we haven't addressed involving gift cards. So I would say test it again. We had a really, really big release last night that resolved those two things. If it's still an issue, let us know in support. It's probably something we can fix within a week or so.
Jackie has a question for you concerning POS and transferring over records. Is this something that she's going to have to do herself, or will this transfer be automatic?
So these two applications are actually accessing the same database. So the records should exist in both suites that you're using, whether you're in MoSoClub or Connection. The big difference would probably be the register ID. If you have some of these for Connection and that are different from MoSoClub, but the data exists in both applications. So if you run this report for all registers, you'll see the data for Connection and MoSoClub. So if there's a specific transaction you're seeing in one and not the other, that sounds like it would be an issue, and I would say you need to tell support about that one because that concerns me.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. I have a question from Kara. After applying a personal training charge to a member's account, choosing the provider name and clicking OK, a box pops up stating console undefined. What does that mean?
Sorry, I lost the part where you said the error message. Sorry, Todd.
Oh, no worries. So after applying a personal training charge to a member's account and choosing the provider name and clicking OK, a box pops up stating console undefined. What does that mean? Is that on our end?
That sounds like an error message. And to tell you the very technical reason, when you have an error in JavaScript, which is the programming language that's running on your side, so in point of sale, this would be the JavaScript code that's running on your computer. This is the actual code. You can open up your browser and see this at any time. If there's an error that happens in JavaScript and it can't handle that error correctly, this programming language will say undefined. So I can't tell you the specifics of that error because it's not being handled correctly. But that does concern me. That sounds like something that's a very big deal, and I would like that issue reported to support so we can get that fixed as soon as possible.
Awesome, thanks, Kara. I've just noted it in our bug fix, so much appreciated. Let me shift gears. Debbie has a question. The verbiage in the description field of the statement module for says payment, when in fact it was a refund and the receipt does not say refund. Is that fixed? This dates back from the 21st.
Debbie, I don't think that one's fixed yet. I know I saw that ticket come in. There were two tickets that had to do with the verbiage on receipts when there was something besides a regular sale. One was if you void a transaction, that receipt wouldn't say void. We resolved that issue, so that was just in the release that went out last night. I believe we also resolved the one where it didn't say refund on the receipt. Uh-oh, looks like I have a bug. Oh, that's mine. So this one will say void now. I'm not sure about refund. I can't do one right now in my development environment. If it's still an issue, reach out to support, but there's a chance that did make it out in the same release. I just can't say off the top of my head. You can also shoot me an email. I know email a lot. So thanks. Thanks for the question.
Thanks, Matt. One more follow-up from Debbie. Also, I have to hit reprint if I want to get a receipt for refunds. This goes back to the 19th. Has this been addressed?
So that would be something I hadn't heard before. If you're doing a refund, the receipt's not printing automatically. It could be that it didn't say the refund on that original receipt. I don't think that one has been addressed, now that I'm remembering. And that one's still open in development, that the original refund receipt that prints won't say that, but the reprint will. That bug is still out there, but it should be fixed. It's assigned to the next development sprint that's coming out on Tuesday, this coming up Tuesday.
All right, Karen has a question. What is the time frame for MoSoClub Desktop? Oh, I'm sorry, we already hit that one. My bad. Let's go.
Sorry, you dropped out again there, Todd.
Oh, no worries. Jessica has a question. Can you use Scheduler to schedule lockers to assigned members?
You can, hypothetically, anything that you have in your gym, you can set up as a resource. These three fields or types of resources, you could have them as anything. This physical resource, it can be a pool, it can be a locker, it can be a tanning booth, it can be a bicycle. I've written out use case scenarios for one of our prospects that had 30 bicycles, and they have members that like to reserve a specific bicycle for each class. So we gave them the ability to do that in Scheduler. So, and you can do the same thing with lockers, yeah.
Excellent, thanks, Matt. Christine has a question related to Scheduler as well. On Scheduler for spa services, are you able to apply the therapist's name to the room and change them daily, plus link to the therapist at the same time to a second room, because we also do couple sessions and need to block the couple room and the therapist at the same time to avoid double booking?
So, and that's something that I knew was going to come up and didn't really exist in Connection. So it is something that we added. You can link resources together here. So, for example, if you have a resource that is a boxing room, let's just say you have a room that's multiple personal trainers use for boxing, but only one can use at a time. You can create a resource for the room, and then you can also create resources for the individual trainers who might do a training session for boxing in that room, and link each of those trainers to that room. So let's say this physical location resource is that boxing room. When you go and create a block time, I don't know if I can do it right now for this, but when you go and create a block time for that availability, you can create a linked resource blockage, and this is something you'll probably want to contact support or read the documentation when we have it, because it will explain how to do this. But you can block out that room for that period of time for each of those personal trainers. So only one of them can have their room reserved in that time, even though the other trainer will be available for something else during that time. It was a big enhancement from the Connection Scheduler. It took us quite a lot of time in development, but I think it's a really cool feature.
It is. Hey, thanks, Matt. Let me jump to Nanette, who has a question. We've been unable to restore archived terminated members since the last update. Will this be fixed in the next update?
That's a great question. We actually addressed that in the most recent release. We made a code change to prevent member duplication. That code change went out on the 19th. We noticed a couple days after that it broke something, and we fixed it. But of course, that had to go through testing again. That fix went out today. I saw the QA ticket and through testing that said it was resolved. So you might want to retest that one today, because that fix went out at about 4 a.m. this morning when I hit launch. So if you haven't done it today, I'd encourage you to give it another try.
Awesome, thanks, Matt, and thank you, Nanette. Great questions. All right, Christine has a question for you. For check-in on package redemptions, the used and remaining were switched. For example, the receipt would say used 14, remaining 1. Is that something that's in a bug fix, or has this already been addressed?
That's a great question, and this is something that bothered me. That's fixed. So I'll even show you an example now. That was fixed about 2 weeks ago, I believe. So I'm going to use one, pick a random person. Will not let me use this item for some reason. Okay, so I'll print a receipt for this package now. Sorry, this is the desktop application that's throwing errors. But we'll look at this. This is correct now. So used is what you just used there. Remaining is actually correct now at 5, and we can see that reflected here. Thanks for the question. Great questions.
All right, another question from Christine. Taking a photo and printing the member card, We are still unable to print the card because the photo of the member does not come up in the photo area of the card to be able to print. The photos in Connection and in MoSoClub do not link together. Are you closer to finding the solution to this problem?
Yes, we are, and we've actually got this working for a few people, but we've noticed that it's taking a little bit of database changing to get this to work with MoSoClub as opposed to Connection. The two applications are still handling this a little bit differently. It's handling it better in MoSoClub, so we're actually doing the change on a case-by-case situation. So if it's not working for you, trust me, we're working actually like all night to get these converted over, so they're still working. Um, if we haven't reached out to you directly and talked to you about getting them converted over, then contact support and we'll get you on the schedule. But we're working as diligently as we can to get these converted over and working, and so you can print the cards in MoSoClub.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. Sarah has a question concerning access and rights. When I sign into MoSo with my password, which has no security restrictions, how can I restrict employees from accessing information their security clearance does not allow them to have access to? For example, Connection used to prompt users to enter their username passwords in membership management.
So the one big difference there between Connection and MoSoClub is in Connection, if your user didn't have access to open up membership management, they would never see this page, the first page of the member landing. On our horizon is to change this landing page and give you a pretty dashboard with nice metrics. Sorry, I'm running on my development side. But for right now, you're still going to be landing in membership management. So the way that you handle that is by managing the user security settings. So every click that you make in the application, for the most part, is configurable for what you allow the user to do. From changing from this tab to this tab, you can require someone to enter their password and check a security level to make sure they have the proper clearance to do that. So each employee, go back and do this slower. So each employee and setup employees will have a security level associated with them. And most of the time I would encourage clubs to set these up on a departmental level so you have some really good systematic way of auditing this and setting them up. So let's say this 10 would be your typical front desk staff. You manage what this level is able to do in membership management system settings. All right, it does a lot, obviously, when we load up system settings. Give it a second. Okay, so the area security tab here has all of the sections where you're able to configure basically every click, every functionality. You can set a security level, so every click they make, so let's say, for example, this allow user to manually add package. When they do that functionality, it will check and see, once they do that, if they have a security level that's 8 or higher. If they don't, it will put up an alert saying, hey, user, you don't have the permission to do this, or whatever the exact lexicon or terminology is. If they do, it will allow them to do that, but it will also record in our security table that they've done this. So every area that you see here, we have a record of everyone doing this, and there's a configurable security level for each option. Some of these are left over from Connection and don't necessarily have a purpose anymore. We just included them because they're in the database, really, and we're pulling everything from the database. The checkbox here gives you the option of forcing them to enter their username and password for every time they perform that operation. For example, this allow user to update member records. This is a really common security area. This is fired off every time someone presses the save button in membership management and in check-in if they're doing any editing there in notes or anything like that. So you can see the security level for this one's set to 6. That's pretty low. If you don't want someone to be able to edit members, then they would have to be set below there. If you want someone to have to log in every single time they save a member to verify that they have the security, then you check this box. The benefit of that is if you have like a manager who's signed into a computer at the front desk and they walk away, if someone comes in and tries to make a change and hit save, they still have to enter their username and password. If you don't have that checked, it will just use that member's authenticated session and know that they have the correct security clearance.
Matt, it's the top of the hour, and I want to give our attendees a chance to break if they need to head back out on the floor or continue with other work. We are recording this session, and we'll provide a link so that you can watch this session again. But if the folks that want to stay online, we'd like to go ahead and answer your questions while you're here with us today. I've got, let's see, 5 more questions in the queue for you, Matt. Let's start with Nydia, who asks, were the issues with account link resolved?
I'll try and be a little bit less winded in my responses. Nydia, yes, the issue where you could not transfer data from POS over from basically export it, that was resolved. As I said before, one of the major things we're working on is fixing the transaction reporting. Some of those things I've noticed are causing issues in account link, as in the data is just bad in the database when you click transfer data. So if you see any bad data, call us and we can get it fixed up for you. But the transfer data functionality, so you can transfer data from POS, is fixed. I might not have any transactions here, so ignore this, but it is fixed.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. All right, Debbie has a question I think we need to prioritize as quickly as possible concerning mass emailings. She's experiencing doubling and tripling of her weekly emails. Is there any reason for this that you know of? Is this something that we can prioritize for her?
Debbie, that's not something I heard before, so I can't tell you the cause or the solution to that issue. I haven't actually seen it. We just got the mass mailer working right before the snowstorm, or maybe a little bit right after that. And I've noticed there are still a few issues with it that we have planned for this sprint coming up. It means the next development sprint when we're going to do bug fixing. One of the major issues is the email address here. You can put in whatever email address you want here, and it should show that as the return address. But right now it's not. It's taking a static value that we had to program. So if you do have an issue that I don't know about like that one, or if you've seen another issue with the email wizard, let us know in support. We can most likely include that in this upcoming development sprint and get it out to you as soon as possible. We'll already have our hands in that part of the code.
Thank you, sir. Let me shift gears to Sarah. When we're in membership management, we used to be able to scan documents into member files. Is that still a function in MoSoClub, and if so, where is it?
So the ability to scan documents directly into a web browser is just not something you can do. It's the same reason we can't communicate with the printer and the cash drawer barcode scanner, which we need a desktop application. Similarly, we can't communicate with a web browser, or sorry, with a scanner. The good news, or the good part of that is you can basically scan with any scanner directly into Windows, and then once you have that document scanned, you can upload the document to any member. If you don't see this button, it's most likely just a system setting that we have to check a box to activate that. But that allows you to select a file, and for some reason my computer is being slow. Select a file and upload it to server. So I'll select the Motionsoft image. Just hypothetically, if that had been something you had scanned, you can upload it and then view it later from any computer at any time. So while you can't scan directly in, you can still upload what you've already scanned.
Excellent, thanks, Matt. Let me shift gears again and pop over to Christine for a second. She just sent out a note to Caroline, so hopefully there's already a ticket for this, but they were unable to reprint a receipt from the front desk POS or reprint package redeemed because the print on the right clip does not come up. other computers from accounting shows print, and my computer unfortunately does not at the front desk. She's going to send a screen share to Caroline. Is that something that you guys are aware of, or where are we with that?
That isn't something I'm aware of personally, but I talk to Caroline almost daily, so I'm sure I'll hear about it very soon. But we'll get support to reach out and get that fixed. It sounds like it's just a system setting somewhere.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. Nydia has a follow-up question. Are you editing the security grid? Can we print the security grid for each module to review with management?
Nydia, we don't have an option to print that now. I know in Connection there was a custom report that we developed for one client in particular. I believe we ported it over, so you might even be able to run it now. Let's find out. I'm honestly not sure what this will do, but if it doesn't work, I'll get this fixed so it will. Oh, yeah, this isn't exactly what I was looking for. Oh, okay, yes. So this will tell you each employee's security level. So that's step one, because you have to sort of know what level everyone has. I don't think we can print out that grid from the application right now, but if you'd like to, it's really easy for me to pull that from your database specifically. So shoot me an email or shoot an email to support, and I can get that to you at the end of the day today. Really, this entire grid with all of the settings for each module, what you have them now. Literally take me about 5 minutes.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. Robert has a question for you, and he thinks this question may have been resolved. The issue he reported yesterday, dependent showing up in the pending with members' fees due.
Oh yes. So this issue was sort of fascinating to me in a macabre way, because it was reported by one other client one time about a month and a half ago, and I had spent about 3 hours trying to replicate it and couldn't do it. The entire development team, we were actually late into the night trying to replicate it, and we absolutely couldn't do it. We're baffled. So when you reported your case yesterday, we all jumped out of our chair and went running over to support to see it happen. We replicated it here. It hasn't been resolved because it's going to require a code fix, I believe. But the biggest step in resolving a bug is being able to replicate it consistently. So now that we can do that, that's one that we can replicate, even though we had only seen it once before.
Excellent. Kara has a question, and it's really a concern, and I think a very valid one. It sounds like there are still several things to work out. Can you tell us when you plan to turn off connection?
Yes, and I agree. There are absolutely several things to work out. I see all the tickets that come in every day. I see that they are decreasing in the number we get every day, but we do still get a lot of bugs. The cutoff date is 2/15. That's for PCI compliance. We actually can't push it past 2/15. At that point, connection will be no longer payroll card industry compliant. So that means if you have any fraud that happens when someone swipes a credit card, the liability will be forced onto the consumer or onto the merchant. So we basically can't allow access to connection after that point. So we do have a lot of things that we're still working on. If you have something that's super high priority, let us know, and we're treating them in development as such. We're resolving about 30 issues reported a week, which sounds like a lot, but it's down from nearly 70 at the beginning of the year. So it's a big difference. Most of those are just data issues where we're cleaning something up that was a bad conversion, or data that was just handled differently by Connection that it is in MoSoClub, just a little bit differently. So most of them are very small, but there are still things we're working out. We're listening to feedback. Stay in touch.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. I know that hard and fast deadline is tough for everyone. Let me jump back to Debbie here, who has a question kind of related to Robert's. And her question is, how will this dependent versus dues affect my billing that I'm doing today?
Debbie, I know this is a very specific case, and you sent us a list of people who were affected by that. And I believe Corey is working on your database to get those resolved, or I think the the responsible party method changed. He was handling that, heading that case, so I'm not sure the specifics. You may want to reach out to him directly. If I think you have his email address. I'll follow up with him right after this webinar, and you as well, so we can make sure we get this resolved before you do your billing today. That's something we're going to have to connect with, because I know you sent us that spreadsheet.
Well, we got one more question from Debbie. Actually, just a thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate your questions. I appreciated all the attendees' questions today. Very helpful for us. And I hope we've given you enough information on MoSoClub today just to get your comfort level up with the application. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to email your question to support@motionsoft.net, or of course, if it's easier, please call our 1-800 number, and it's option 5, and we'll get you taken care of. And again, thank you for your time today. Again, we'll record this session and be sending it out probably over the next few hours here. So look for that. And Matt, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We'll be in touch.
This will conclude our webinar for today. Thank you for attending.